Hey guys, welcome back to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. And for today's special edition, we are wrapping up the month of June. And something we failed to do at the beginning of the month, but we didn't want to get through the month without talking about it specifically, it being Men's Mental Health Month. And so, well, first of all, we want to acknowledge it because it's a real thing, right? And it's something that my partner here, Zeke, has a huge heart for, especially in the construction industry. Mental health being something that you've been advocating and championing for a long time now. And so we thought, hey, why don't we put a show out there that brings awareness to it, brings cognizant awareness to it, and also helps people think in terms of what they could and or should be doing, and just getting the discussion out there. And let's start by saying this. What's the main reason the discussion doesn't get out there?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, so June being Men's Health Month, we're in an industry still, although the female population is growing rapidly, we're happy about that, but still predominantly male industry, whether construction or manufacturing. And I think, those folks have chosen to work in these fields. And the culture has been one of it's a very difficult industry to work in. They're difficult sites. They're dangerous. And so it's been a rough and tumble type employee or professional that kind of works in these different industries. And so it's just one of those things we didn't talk about. It was seen as potentially a sign of weakness. We always talked about, and look, 20 years ago, we didn't talk about physical safety like we do today, right? It wasn't a thing.
Right.
And we talked to my dad before, and people in the industry that say safety harness. We walked. There's a famous poster of those guys in New York City sitting on a beam at lunch, right? In the 1900s, they were sitting hundreds of feet up in the air. So look, physical safety wasn't a thing 25, 30 years ago like it is today.
Right.
And so now as that evolves, we now say, look, you can't really have health and safety without talking about mental health and psychological safety and some of that stuff, because it's the whole person. We're asking for the whole person to come to work, give us their whole self,
right?
Multiple days, long hours. And so it's important, I think, to just say, this isn't a special in June or Mental Health May. It's something we talk about here and we address and we allow to talk about and we encourage it too. So I think the shift is on a little bit as far as it not being an example of weakness anymore. But I do think as those folks retire out, the tough guys and gals retire out, maybe this will open up a bit. And I certainly think even those folks that are close to retirement are starting to say, man, that's what I was going through all those years ago. I should have had somebody to talk to. I'm glad that we do now.
Should have addressed it. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. And I think if we back out of the industry, right, and just look at it as a systemic issue across our nation, it's not just the industry. I think they said that I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago, meeting with a group of men, and prior to that meeting, I wanted to sit down and highlight the emphasis and the need for relationships and the ability to communicate those relationships, and how the default mechanism oftentimes in our social structure is, if a woman, and let's just be honest, if a woman's going through things, oftentimes they're going to pick up the phone and call a friend and vet and share that stuff. Man's not going to do it.
No.
Their DNA is not wired in a way, and social statuses have said from the beginning, go all the way back down to the playgrounds, right, where it all started. The guy who was the strongest, biggest, fastest was the king of the playground, and that's typically how that worked. And so the guy wasn't going to talk about if he was the king of the playground, if his dad was slapping him around at home. Those conversations weren't coming up.
That's right.
And then we all go all the way back to that kid saying, hey, my dad could beat up your dad. So from the very beginning of time, it's been, how do we institute our strength in the marketplace? And then now we've got a world in which people are going through things, but then what does all that pain and that struggle and the inability to communicate turn into? Well, it turns into alcohol abuse. It turns into narcotic abuse. It turns into family abuse in the household, and a lot of things and then ultimately in a lot of instances, it turns into suicide. I think, and so they said, I think rates were 4 to 5 times higher for men to be committing suicide than women in the world today. And that's not just the construction industry. No. That's just in general when I looked it up. Now you take that into the industrial sector, you take that into the things that we're dealing with every day. A lot of these guys are working long hours, different hours. When a project is, one thing that I've noticed, I got clients in construction, a lot of times, for example, next week we got a ton of rain, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of jobs are going to be shut down.
That's right.
So I'm not making any money. So then all of a sudden, the next week, I got
13
sunshine.
Yep, 13
got
days straight.
Yeah. So 13 days straight. And now I got to go. And so that kind of off on instability, working like crazy, that kind of thing. I mean, any kind of world that would be taxing, but then throw that on top of a bunch of guys who you can't say, hey, man, my wife and I are struggling at the house. No one's going to talk about that kind of stuff. It's just a DNA and a wiring. So what are the ways that we can start to address that? And so I guess hopefully there's employers that are hearing this, or people that are hearing this, there are men that are hearing this. What's the ways that you've been, because I know you've been taking an initiative in the construction space to champion this. How do we go about addressing this, bring it to, not only getting it to the forefront now, but then what are some tactics that can be used to start getting after it?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, Jason, we've worked together for some time now, I think, and we just had recently had Ryan sitting on the data guy. I think bringing data to those businesses and saying, look, this is a real thing. So you use the construction or manufacturing industry specifically. In construction, we have OSHA, governing safety organization of the government, and they have this thing called, some people say Fatal 4 or Focus 4. It's basically the 4 leading causes of incident, injury, in construction and death, right?
Right.
Fall from, which Apache does, the scaffolding. Struck by a piece of equipment, caught in between, and electrocution. Those are the 4 leading causes.
Right.
Well, guess what? Now, suicide in construction outnumbers all 4 of those combined. So do you think a lot of owners of businesses know that? Probably not. So bringing some of that data and say, hey, you're training your folks to do everything necessary. They know what happens when this alarm goes off, this bell, this whistle, who to call, where to muster, where to go, who to check in with, what procedures to follow for any of those incidents, right? Anything happens, any crisis, but you're not going to spend $1, some extra hours on how to train them how to deal with their personal, crises. So look, one thing to tie it in is data, and then tying it to safety,
right?
Like we talked about earlier, the whole person. There's no question, or maybe I'll ask you this: if you're a guy who works at heights up on a scaffold, and you've got some things which we may share some of our personal journeys here. We've both had some things going in our lives that were stressful.
Right.
We're a bit distracted at work, perhaps.
Right.
Well, we're sitting at a desk, or we're on the phone all day, or we're doing our jobs, doing podcasts. That's one thing. We're working at heights next to things that are literally designed to blow up or combust. Right. So they're dangerous things. But you were distracted because you got some things going on at home, or some health issues, or your kids, or whatever. Would you say you may be a little less safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So look, you're tying it to safety. So bring some safety data, bring some of the data that, hey, this is an actual crisis. It's not this, fluffy thing over here that we celebrate or bring awareness to twice a year. This is a real crisis. And here's the other issue. It's not getting any better. And that's the thing for us, right? We talk about health and safety in this industry. I use the industry as everything the Economic Alliance covers, construction and manufacturing here. That's where we sit. You bring some of that data of like how this is affecting safety and going to cost them money. That's the way to me to get their attention. And then you can get into the heart of it.
Right.
And say, hey, your moral and ethical duty is to do something better about it. But let's talk about why it's impacting your checkbook first and the company. And so it's in your best interest to actually do something about it and address it. So I think that's your first step.
Absolutely. And I think the step 2, right, is now that you've acknowledged it, you got to get plugged in and start to understand what tools and resources are available to help you as an organization. And I would argue to say that not every organization is probably there yet when it comes to, heck, even a lot of organizations, if we're talking about small business owners or a lot of these service they don't even have technically an HR department, right? They have somebody who's ops, and then they serve as HR. Or they leverage these other resources. So what kind of tools are available to business owners or those that are in the marketplace that really maybe they hear this today and say, hey, I want to do something about this. Yeah. I don't know where to start. And I don't really have, do I hire somebody who's an expert in what do I get a psychiatrist? Or what do I do?
Yeah.
What type of tools are available to people that need this?
Look, and I'm a simpleton, certainly of the two of us, the simple guy here. So I think there are tons of phenomenal tools, resources out there, but to start, especially for a small business, you have to integrate it into your culture first. And what I tell people all the time is just start talking about it.
Right.
Just start talking about it. Have a conversation. In your next safety meeting, hey, today's Toolbox Talk is going to be about mental health awareness and resiliency, not just harnessing up or how to be safe at heights. We're going to talk about this today. Start that conversation.
Right.
To me, that's been the most impactful in my business. I've seen people's eyes light up like, oh, we talk about this here?
Right.
Like, yes, we do.
Right.
And it's not just today. It's not just in Mental Health May or Suicide Prevention in September or Men's Health Month in June. This is what we do. This is our culture. We care about our folks, and we're going to talk about it. That's always my first tip. There's lots of technology, certainly in HR departments or the healthcare brokers. They provide some excellent resources. Look, there's a national number now. 988 is like the national 911 for mental health issues.
Right.
You can pick up the phone, anywhere across the country, dial 988, and you will talk to a licensed counselor on the other end to see what's going on. So that's a resource. That doesn't cost you a thing.
Doesn't cost you anything. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And a lot of veterans.
Maybe just have that posted somewhere.
Hard hat sticker. Hard hat sticker, right? Start there.
Hard hat sticker. Love that. Yeah.
Hard hat sticker with 988 on it. Or hard hat sticker we do at Apache where it's just a reminder and some of the resources, they have a QR code on it. You can scan it on a hard hat and say, it goes right to some of our mental health resources.
So there you go. So Apache's already out in front of it.
Well, sure. We try to be. Yeah. I mean, I'm really proud of the work we do, right? And it's not just because of me. I work there because I was already passionate about it, and so are the people that work there. My CEO we've had on before.
Right, I love
my boss Samantha we've had on.
Yeah.
She's an advocate for it. She champions this and is like, get out on the road and talk about it more because it does matter. And so, yes, can I refer you to? And certainly anybody listening, all 6 or 8 of you, call me or reach out and say, hey, I want some more specific information. But I'm telling you, if you're a business leader or owner, just start having the damn conversation first, and that will make the biggest impact more than any dollar you spend on resources, because then that's the change. That's the first change. Like, oh, we talk about that. And you're gonna be shocked how many people come out of the woodwork and say, I'm so happy that we start talking about this. I've had this issue with my son, or me and my wife are struggling. Right. I've had this physical illness that's driving me nuts. And there's all kind of physical connection between mental health and physical
100%.
health, right? All kinds of 100%. Connections there. So to me, that's where we've had the most success in my career, and certainly in Apache, we talk about mental health here. We're going to be a mental health champion as a company. People coming out you least suspect. Oh, guys, and say, man, I'm so glad we're talking about this. I've had this issue where I brought the topic we talked about in the toolbox, talk to my son, right? And everything's going to be strange at first. For those out there, there's a stretch and flex thing now in safety. Every morning these guys go out there and they do some Jane Fonda aerobics things to stretch and flex their body because it makes them more safe.
Yeah.
Right? Makes them more limber. They're doing some things that put stress on the body.
Yeah.
I'm sure the first morning we did that was really weird. They're like, what the hell are we doing here? What is this? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So it's going to have some growing pains when you start talking about these things. And some people may tune out, but guess what? If you make one impact, that's enough. You may save one life.
It could be that one person that needed that exact moment.
Right? One more person going home better than they came to work and coming back the next day.
One of the things that just while we're on the topic, because somebody might have interest in this, a few months ago, I was at a breakfast with the gentleman who had flown into town, and he was here to do a toolbox lunch and this is different than your toolbox talks. This is a ministry that does men's ministry, but he was talking. They're in manufacturing, large manufacturing company nationwide, and the pivot for them and their employees and the ability to drive employee value and really, I mean, we're talking about life-changing stuff, moving people from alcoholism, moving people from all kinds of challenges. Again, this is a bold thing. It depends on the culture of your organization, but they actually have a full-time, and there's organizations that do this, but they hired a full-time chaplain service. So they have chaplains in the marketplace. So at every one of their plants, every one of their offices, they have full-time chaplains there that are on staff. And he said that's been the revolutionary shift.
I have heard more and more, and I'll give a shout out to a member, Austin Industrial. They have that. They have a director of chaplain services out of their Dallas operation. That I spoke to that group one time, and the chaplain, head of chaplain, I think his name, director of the services, was there too. We both talked together on the topic, and I was just like, you guys have this? I mean, that's next level things, but that all started from somebody in leadership, some leadership buy-in saying, we need to start talking about something a little bit different and bring in an extra benefit. And certainly I think Austin's an employee owned, so they have, employee ownership across the board, so they can have more voices than just one leader. But that all started when somebody in leadership said, we're going to start talking about this. Right. And we're going to bring in, pastoral services or some kind of resource that's not just call HR, go to this website, click on these things, and read this pamphlet. We're going to bring it to where you are, not make you go find it, which I think that's huge.
This guy said that the guys are stacked from morning to noon. They're just one person after another who's there pouring into them. And,
just an example of a good idea. It may not be your culture.
Might not be your culture, but there's resources out there. I think that as you start to make these things a priority, you can't say people are important in your organization because if you really look at, I deal with owners all the time, and one of the things that I'm always championing for that owner is, hey, your talent is part of your treasure when it comes to this business. And so when you look at what drives revenue, what pays the bills, there's all kinds of things, KPIs, all kinds of things that you can measure. But at the end of the day, it's driven by people.
100%.
And so if you're going to get those people out to execute and do their job, and specifically we're talking about mental health in general, but then now let's talk about the month being the month of June. Let's talk about men's. It's back to your point around awareness, but making resources available, saying, hey, this is critical. And then making it something that you're going to speak into from a passion perspective and do something about. The thing is you can't wait for issues to arise or to deaf ear it. I think that the benefit of where we stand today is that there's no lack of data or information that's available out there to you. So there's no excuse for not doing something about it.
For sure. And you made a great point there. And this is what you do for your business, right? You're helping build incentive plans for companies to incentivize their people for good work. But guess what? The only way you do that is if you have an engaged, right, loyal person that wants to work hard and is focused on their job and is loyal to the company and super engaged. When you get a mentally healthy person and trained and resilient person, they are more productive. They have less absenteeism, less tardy. I mean, you're just an overall more complete person, which is all we're asking for, right? It's all you're talking to these business leaders about. Hey, what are we going to do to get these people going? What's our incentive? Sure, money always works, right? But that only goes so far because there's somebody down the street can offer them a little bit more money, a quarter more. It's going to be, I don't need to take a quarter more, or I need life-changing money to leave because my company cares about me in all the different ways.
Right.
They're not just.
Well, there are people who pass by dollars every day because of the place that they love to work for.
I 100% agree. The people
Chick-fil-A is one of those companies. People would love work for Chick-fil-A and they never leave.
That's right. Yeah. And it's they've developed a culture, and it's the company, it's the people they work for and work with. They feel like it's a community where they can come in and share ideas and talk about things that may be hard or may be difficult, which is important.
So we'll kind of gear up and get ready to wrap up, but we wanted to talk about it. We wanted to bring it to our audience, and hopefully maybe there's someone that's listening. And so I would say this, one thing that is definitive about life is that it's hard. That's just, the Bible talks about it. There's not any book out in the world. There's no leader out in the world today running a company or business that can't say that life's hard. But at the same time, you're not alone at this life, right? And I think mental health, people don't want to. I'll give you an actual fact. I actually did genetic testing a couple of months ago. As you know, I battled some health issues over the last 5 years, and battling those issues. Part of what I did was took a nutritional approach to solving it. And battling those issues also caused me to have a lot of mental challenges because I was losing weight and feeling like crap. And so, everything you just described, thank God I wasn't having to operate heavy equipment on certain days. Right now, fast forward, got it all under control, managing it. Life is good. That being said, I wanted to really refine it. And so I went and did some genetic testing. And what was interesting was it told me, the right type of foods I need to eat, but it also told me genetically, right, that, hey, you're wired for the following, anxiety, depression, because we're like God made me in a way that, that I'm susceptible to these things. Now, reading it, having already, 45 years old, having already dealt with life, it wasn't like that was new, right? Some of the things is like, by the way, you shouldn't eat pork. I was like, oh, well, that's new. But on the other hand, by the way, you might deal with these type of challenges, but now going back in time and watching how those things manifested in my life, to anxiety, to sleepless nights, to feeling the weight of the world, to all of these things. But then for many years, I remember I grew up in a sales industry, and we kind of had a moniker, right? Who could work the most. Like our culture tells you that, like the 2 a.m. post of, the grind don't stop, all these things that are built around this culture of like you should be out there championing and pounding your chest about how much you're capable of doing.
Right.
And God forbid you be in a season where you're getting the crap kicked out of you and you just need some help. right?
Or rest.
Or rest,
Yeah.
right? And so you use that 988 for anybody that's listening to this. But at the same time, I would argue that, you know, another interesting stat when I was looking at these stats, and I heard this from I was at a men's discipleship luncheon, and one of the guys there, it was a guy who had taught a guy and mentored him and taught him the Bible, and then that guy was there with a young man that he had mentored and taught him the Bible, and so there's three guys. You're basically seeing three generations of that, and one guy, the older guy, had been mentored, and so what you were seeing though was this kind of relationship where each one of these men had somebody that was speaking life into them and somebody they could go to when they were struggling.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing that I wanted to say is the one kid, the youngest guy, said that he figured out, because when he got found by the guy and he had met him and he started helping and supporting him, he had said that he found that his college peers, that one, I think they said, I think it was 75. So if there's 5 guys in college or 4 guys in college, 3 out of those 4 guys don't have a single friend. 3 out of 4. They don't have a single friend. And so they might know people, they might virtually know somebody. So like somebody they play video games against, but literally a fact right now that in college, there's young men who are growing up into this world, and that their world is, I play games, I go to school, I order, what do you call it? DoorDash.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe I work somewhere. Maybe
my girlfriends are online, right? Like I can just log in and have a date, and then that's it, right? Like that's the extent of, and they were saying
no dialogue,
no true relationships. And so what was interesting was, when you go and you fast forward to where we stand today as men, the challenge is that more often than not, there are men who don't have that relationship. Right. Like if a man's leaving work and he's thinking about leaving his marriage, or he's thinking about driving off a bridge, or he's thinking about that. If a man looked at this thing and said, well, I know Mike, I talked to him at the cooler. I know those guys I see at church on Sunday. I walk by them and say hi, and we ask each other how our kids are doing. And I know that guy that coaches my kids' athletics. I don't actually know anybody that I can actually pick up the phone and tell them what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So my encouragement too is that those resources are available. There's people out there that want to have that, that connection, but you have to be intentional about it. If you're battling something and you're listening to this, you have to get by the hands and say, I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah. And conversely,
and be okay with the fact that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to maybe cry, and it's going to be a tough conversation.
Yeah.
I think, everybody should have someone they feel like they can call. We may have a buddy that calls if our butts in a sling, but can we really talk about what we're going through? We've both been through some interesting journeys. I mean, me talking about this topic has been my therapy.
Yeah.
Coincidentally.
Right.
Being able to talk through it, and not always sharing my story, just talking about it to others. Right. So I think that's been helpful. But I'll say my challenge to folks that are listening now or later is, if you're thinking about somebody you haven't talked to in a while, pick up the phone and call them. A call or a text, because countless examples of folks that were at that edge and were thinking about doing something to harm themselves potentially. A phone call or a text or an email just saying, hey, I was thinking about you, how are you, has saved lives. I mean, I've heard countless stories. I'm sure you have as well. But just if you're thinking about somebody, I was thinking about Johnny and I haven't talked to him in a while, I'm going to call him or send him a text. Or, oh, it's that person's birthday, I haven't seen them in 20 years, I'm going to send him a happy birthday note, right? Or on Facebook. Those things can literally save lives. So it's right off your point. You need to have some connections, even if you're not next to them like we are today, but just having those conversations, the dialogue. And what I mean by dialogue is two-way conversation. Someone that's willing to listen to you, which is what your example was, like those mentors. Right. They're talking to them, but most importantly, they're listening to their issues and using their background, what was taught to them, to pass that on. I think that's so important. And that's another way the companies can start. Like, pair people up. Right. Get an old timer with a youngster and pair them up and have them just chat about life and experience and help each other that way. I think that's a simple and very inexpensive way to really bolster culture in your companies and create relationships. And that's what it's all about. You said it, right? Your people are your talent, is your engine. And so people that, you talk about some stats. I think I saw a study once that said people's number one reason for staying at a company is not money, not their manager, not all this stuff. It's having a best friend at work.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
So people say, quit your manager. No, man, if you don't have a best friend at work,
right,
then you're more apt to leave than somebody else that does. So again, I'm just echoing what you just said.
absolutely.
Relationships matter, conversations matter, this topic matters. And so you got to get to a point in a company, specifically, we work more than we're at home, certainly. In this industry we are. You got to be able to talk about those things that you would normally maybe just only talk about at home with a spouse or with a best friend or whatever. You got to find those relationships at work as well and be open. And the leaders of those companies have to set that tone. That's where it starts.
Awesome. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Oh man, this is great. I'm glad we got to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad we did too.
You and I do this more often on lighthearted stuff, but it's meant to be a positive month, right? Focusing on men's health, looking back at how we can get better, whether it's genetic testing and saying, hey, this was weighing on my whole body. Yeah. Or it's mental health or spiritual or health. Something Jason can help you with, financial health, which is important too. That's certainly
they all work.
Well,
they work
in concert, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are stressors on
100%
your body. So I'm elated that we got to just me and you chat for a while and talk about something that's important.
And again, for our audience, 988, right? Super simple. Maybe not simple to take the courage to make that decision and do something for yourself. If you're listening to this, if you're a man and you're struggling with some stuff right now, again, today's not to discredit the fact that women are battling things every day. We know that for a fact.
Women can be great support for the men.
They're champions and they're great support. And so if you, so we definitely want to acknowledge that. But again, it's Men's Mental Health Month, right? And so we wanted to make sure we called it out, championed it a little bit, spoke to it, and then again, thank you for having such a great organization that we can use this platform to communicate things, because I know that the Economic Alliance has a heart for people, for their community, for the industry. Absolutely. And wouldn't want to shy away from the truth and the things that are really going on in the world, because we are a voice for this community and continue to be a champion for this community. So again, thank you, brother. As always, love you. And we love our audience. We appreciate you. If you ever want to give us some feedback, you can always reach out to myself or Zeke via LinkedIn. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. Send us any guest ideas that you might have. And if not, we look forward to seeing you guys next week.